Doing some leak detection out here in Mission Viejo, California. This powder room I'm in right here backs up directly to the water heater. Based off the layout of the home, I figured that would be where I'd find the first main hot manifold. I'm tracing the line out here with my thermal imaging camera, as you can see, and there's something here that I missed. We'll get back to that a little bit later. Treat leak detection like you're doing an investigation. Have you had any work done recently? Have you had any leaks in the past? Have you noticed a difference in your gas bill? Or if they've got an electric water heater, have you noticed any difference in your electric bill? Have you noticed any hot spots in your floors, discoloration in any of the drywall or ceilings? Any areas of the home that suddenly became humid? Have your dogs or cats suddenly found a new spot on the floor they like to sleep? If the home is showing water damage, it's much easier to find the leak, but it doesn't always mean it's leaking where you're seeing the water. So during my investigation, the tenant told me that yes, they had been feeling hot spots in the hallway and the living room. So I could see with the thermal imaging camera that most of the heat was in the living room and kind of halfway to the kitchen. So my first guess was the leak was going to be between the powder room and this manifold that I'm about to expose. Probably closer to this side because based off the thermal imaging camera, there was a lot more heat under the living room floor than there was in the bathroom or hallway. Based off the layout of the home, I know that the master shower is directly above me and it's the only fixture sitting on this wall. So I had a feeling they probably ran a 3/4 line under the slab over here to feed both the master shower and then go back down and feed the kitchen. But to my surprise, at some point, this 3/4 line had already been rerouted. These are the kind of surprises that leak detection will always throw at you. During my initial investigation, I had asked the homeowner if he'd ever had a leak before and what year the home was built. He told me no, they had never had a leak before and the home was built in 1986. Now, seeing that they had clearly had a slab leak before, I had to rethink this. As you can see, what's left of that hot manifold is glowing red hot. So we know for sure that manifold is involved in some way. At this moment, both the landlord and the tenant are watching my every move, both waiting for me to finish so they can go to work. I'm trying to stay confident, but doubt is slowly creeping into my mind, and I'm wondering why I even do this. Thankfully, I did give myself some cushion by preparing the customer and letting him know there was a possibility the leak was not between the powder room and that manifold, that it could be between that manifold and the kitchen, and I wouldn't know until I opened up the wall and did some tests. But at that time, I was under the impression that this house had never had a leak before. So that definitely changes things, especially the fact that it was a leak at the same manifold that appears to be leaking again. After opening the wall and exposing the fact that they had clearly had a slab leak before, I asked the owner if he was the original owner of the home once again. He told me no, he wasn't, that he had bought the home in 2002. So somebody either failed to disclose to them that this home had already had a couple slab leaks, or he forgot. Now, this is what I was talking about earlier. This is what I missed. I was told the customer's wife had just finished showering right before I arrived, so I thought this was the drain stack. After taking a minute to think about it, and taking into consideration the other reroutes had to have been done prior to 2002, as long as the customer's telling the truth, nobody was really using PEX back then. I mean, it was rare. There were guys using it, but it was rare. Most guys were jackhammering and trenching. And I believe that's what they did here. They jackhammered, trenched, and ran a soft copper line through the slab and up the wall. That's what we're seeing there in the hallway and in the hallway wall. And then they backfed the master shower and the master lavatory sinks through the ceiling. I believe that other abandoned half-inch line used to feed the lavatory sinks, which are on the opposite wall of the shower. And now I'm fairly certain that this half-inch line goes back down into the slab and feeds the kitchen. So I'm breaking out the good old Goldak listening device, and I'm going to listen to this line, and then I'm going to go and listen to the kitchen again. So now I'm 100% certain that this half-inch line is going down and feeding something, most likely the kitchen. The kitchen faucet is the furthest fixture from both the water heater and the meter. The way this house is set up, I can tell for sure that is going to be the last leg of the run. And unless the kitchen is like the middle of the house or right below a bathroom, it's typically only going to be half-inch. So I'm going to go listen to the hot side in the powder room again, and it looks like it's moving, but just a little bit. It's not really making a lot of noise. So then we're going to come over to the kitchen and have a listen at the kitchen again. And yeah, the kitchen is really screaming. So it's definitely between the kitchen and that manifold we exposed in the office on the other side of the living room. Now I'm going to turn the water off, cut that line and cap it, and see if that stops the leak. Ran to the truck to grab one of the John Guest caps. He says he has his fingers crossed because he's hoping it is to the kitchen. If it is, they're just going to leave it capped. They're not even going to have it rerouted because they plan on repiping as soon as this tenant moves out. I was telling him I pretty much guaranteed it was to the kitchen. The only other place it could go was to the powder room, and that didn't make sense.
Right.
Which he immediately pointed out.
Right. It wouldn't make sense for them to do that first.
However, I've seen a lot of things that don't make sense. So it doesn't always have to make sense to you. As long as it made sense to whoever it was that did it at the time, that's all that matters. Go back, check, make sure the cap isn't leaking. And then we're going to go and see where we lost hot water to. And I'm guessing it's going to be the kitchen. And sure enough, I was right. But we hooked up an Insta-Hot tank for them, so they still end up having hot water. And for whatever reason, this tenant just didn't like me. He didn't seem to trust me. And he wanted me to show him that the meter was no longer spinning. Not everybody's going to like you. Life goes on.